This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
Most of the people that come through our doors, we are their second chance, or maybe some even their last chance.
A sense of self.
When you are in a vulnerable place, it's important that we provide support and not be that one last thing.
What was going through your mind at that point?
I didn't know what I wanted, for real.
Some of us live to eat. Others eat to live. Whatever camp you fall into on any given day, eating doesn't happen unless there is food, which comes from somewhere and someone. And making food is also how people make a living. In fact, the U.S. Department of Labor put the total number of folks working in food service occupations in 2022 at about 13.9 million across the country. Right here in St. Louis, Propel Kitchens equips people to be part of that food industry workforce. But its purpose encompasses more than just job skills and occupational training. Kisha Lee is Executive Director of Propel Kitchens. She joins us today to talk with us about the Propel program and the vision at its core. Kisha, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you.
So Propel Kitchens is a social enterprise developer that also trains folks to enter the food industry workforce, as we just mentioned. What does the first part of that mean, that social enterprise developer?
Well, we're a local nonprofit, so the social enterprise is how we make more money, how we fund ourselves and fund the resources needed to support our staff, as well as the clients that come through the training programs.
And how is that different from the way a business that is not identifying as social enterprise, how that works?
Well, I think that typically a nonprofit organization has one mission, and they focus on that. As a social enterprise, we also have multiple layers that we have to provide additional revenue streams to support the work that we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're in the process of kicking off a pilot program that will produce prepackaged meals for those in community, which is outside of what our main focus is, but it's additional revenue. So it's a social enterprise that will, again, bring more revenue back into the organization to support and help us to help more people.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is the connection, Kisha, between healthy food, job training, and other supports that your organization provides?
Well, what we've noticed in the industry, especially since post-COVID, is that the workforce within the food industry has changed. The workers are just simply not there. And many organizations are on life support. They're struggling, whether it's a restaurant, catering, or those that are in the commercial foods. We operate a full commercial kitchen located in Pagedale, Missouri, where we service 2 local schools that provide K through 6 education in the St. Louis region, as well as we provide commissary foods to our vendors at Washington University.
And why do you think that there's been such a challenge in getting more people to these jobs where that work is really necessary?
Well, I think that the food industry has always relied on low-skill, low-pay wages for its workers, and I think that people who have been in some of those been in those positions, have found that they can do other things, and they're not relegated to staying in a low-paying job. I mean, some have gone to, some of the delivery services and other opportunities. I think people found different ways to fulfill their lives during COVID when they were, when the original mode just wasn't there.
Now, you were talking about where Propel Kitchens is located, and it is in Pagedale.
Correct.
It's part of the Carter Commons, which was developed by Beyond Housing. And when we spoke with Beyond Housing CEO Chris Krameyer on the show last February, in fact, he talked about the constant struggle that folks in the 24-1 communities of North St. Louis County face to get quality and healthy food and the poor health outcomes that are linked to that. Kisha, how is Propel Kitchens part of the solution around those access and health disparities?
Well, I think we check a couple of boxes in that in trying to address those health disparities. For one, we're putting people back to work and on a path to self-sufficiency so that they can provide for their families, provide for their children, and provide for themselves to pay the rent and to pay the utilities that they have. And additionally, as part of what we're doing in providing healthy food options into community, is we're changing what food people are actually have access to eat. We live within, we work. Our kitchen is located within the food desert. As we know, there are many food deserts across the St. Louis region where there just is no healthy option available within a 5 to 10 mile radius. So what we're hoping to do, especially through some of our prepackaged initiatives and what we're doing currently in the school systems, is providing different options for people that's not prepackaged processed food, that's not food that's full of sugars and carbohydrates, but we're providing healthier options to help people to learn better, to be able to move better. We know that some of the food that we eat is what is contributing to a lot of the health disparities that we see. So we want to try to counteract that at Propel Kitchens.
Can you provide an example perhaps of a healthier option that you are offering that otherwise might not be available if Propel Kitchens had not started?
There's many, but I know for one, some of the options that we provide for our schools are freshly made, scratch-made meals. So they're use whole grains instead of processed carbohydrates. So instead of using regular enriched pasta, we use whole wheat pasta. Instead of using a regular tortilla wrap, a flour tortilla, we use whole grains. We make sure that we use fresh fruits and vegetables as much as we can. Some of our initiatives as we move into the next phase of what we're doing is to partner with local farmers to make sure that we have local produce. And we make sure that what we do does not contain a lot of processed foods. So we really pare down some of the recipes. We have commercially trained chefs who work in our kitchen, who provide the training to our trainees. And we make sure that, we go over the recipes for our schools and for what we produce for our clients to make sure that all of that is done within integrity that upholds what we stand for in terms of healthy and nutrition meals.
Now, someone who understands how Propel Kitchens does its thing is Chavi Jackson, a Propel Kitchens trainee, and she also is with us today to talk about her journey and her experience. Chavi, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Hello.
So, Chavi, you're not originally from St. Louis, and the circumstances that brought you here are pretty incredible. Tell us a bit about your life before joining Propel Kitchens, beginning with where you're originally from and how it is that you came to St. Louis.
Well, I used to live in a real small farm town called Bland, Missouri, and I got with my baby's father after my mom died, and then I got pregnant and I got ambulanced up here and abandoned, essentially. He's not part of my life or my daughter's life. And I went through a few programs, housing programs and stuff like that, and that led me to another program that brought me to Propel Kitchens. So.
And Chavi, the pregnancy, and it was complicated, right?
Yeah,
and that was why
she was born 2 months early. They thought she was going to be very, very small. That's why I got ambulanced here. So it was a very stressful pregnancy. That's why.
And none of the health care that you needed was available.
Yeah, it wasn't. She got put in the NICU. We needed the NICU.
And how long was she in NICU? 2
months.
Yeah. And your partner abandoned you right after your child was born? So, that is a lot to deal with all at once. Did you know anyone here in St. Louis?
Nope.
Okay. Once you gave birth to the baby, a lot of things are happening immediately after that. Tell us about that, too.
Okay. So my grandma lost her house while I was in the hospital, so I had nowhere else to go because that would have been my second option after my baby's father. And so I had to, they would not allow me to leave the hospital without having a place to go with my daughters. So I went to a maternity home. So,
And how long were you there?
10 months. I got my GED while I was there, and I also, because my parents aren't really in my life, my mom died and everything, they helped me learn how to raise a baby.
So, I mean, what was it that kept you going?
My daughter.
Yeah. So you're in this situation now in a place that is unfamiliar. You have gotten some help. A lot of things could have happened thereafter. What is it that did happen, though, Chavi?
So I graduated out of the program. I got my GED, and they led me to Youth in Need, who helped me pay my rent. So I was able to stay home with my daughter I didn't have to put her right into daycare, but then I just pretty much, I just kept to myself pretty much in my apartment and raised my daughter until I was done getting the help and I had some money saved up, and then I got a job.
So when was it, Kisha, that you met Chavi? How did that happen?
So we have a partnership with St. Louis County Workforce Development, and one of the programs is the culinary training program, and that's how I was introduced to Chavi. When I first met her, just as she said, her only desire was to be able to independently take care of her daughter, and I wanted to be able to support her in that. That is one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Propel Kitchens. A lot of jobs don't really talk about love and support, but we provide love and support for those who walk through our doors, because sometimes they've never received that. Sometimes they've never had that. So we have to be flexible in how our work model is to be able to allow them to integrate into the workplace.
Yeah. And so Chavi, when you met Kisha and you first learned about Propel Kitchens, what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, honestly, when I first started, I just needed somewhere close to my house so that I could, support my daughter and pay for what I needed to pay for. But as I've been working there and stuff, and the support and the compassion from them understanding, that's what's made me want to be a chef now. So,
And Kisha, what she's talking about as far as proximity goes, why is that such an important thing to note, to pay attention to?
I think it's important because a lot of people, when people are living in poverty, one of the major hindrances is transportation. And transportation is something that was also a hindrance for Chavi. When she first started with us, she was walking to work. She doesn't live too far, but she didn't live close. So it was a sacrifice. So I think that because we are in the community, serving the community, it makes us just be an ideal opportunity for people who live within the communities that we serve.
We need to take a quick break here, but we will be back shortly to continue this conversation. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about why place matters. Another part of place is where the work is actually happening. Chavi, it would be great to get a sense of what the day-to-day looks like for you. What is it that you do on a typical day? And how does that also work with what you need to do as a parent?
Well, cooking, we cook chicken, we cook, we make fruit cups. A big part of what I've learned since I started this job is the cleanup. In order to be a good chef, you have to be a clean chef, or else it ends up building up too much. Multitasking. I've learned a lot of multitasking in the kitchen, learning how to do, which helps me at home, too, with my daughter. So those are the two main things.
Yeah. And there's some flexibility with time that's also valuable, right? How does that help you be a better parent?
I don't know what you mean.
No, so in terms of scheduling and that sort of thing, a lot of places, if you need to take time, right, that's not necessarily available, How has that been helpful for you?
It's been extremely helpful, and I'm so blessed to be able to be part of Propel Kitchens, where they are so understanding of me being a single parent, because whenever my daughter gets sick or anything happens with my daughter, there is no one else, that can be there for her. So it really helps, and it helps me feel stable with what I'm doing as far as a job, because I know that they're gonna understand that that's happening with me, so I can still come back and progress at work. They're not gonna hold it against me or anything like that.
Right, right. Kisha, you'd mentioned earlier, a lot of workplaces do not lead with compassion and love. Why is it so critical for folks who are trained through Propel Kitchens to be in an environment that is like that does have those elements of love and compassion?
I think it's important because we want to be, most of the people that come through our doors, we are their second chance, or maybe some even their last chance. And when that is the situation and you are in that sense of vulnerability, the last thing you need is one more stressor coming from a place, that basically hold your check. So, I as the, executive director and CEO of Propel Kitchens, I wanted to make sure that I provided the supports that I didn't necessarily feel that I had in jobs that I've had throughout my career. And when you are in a vulnerable place, it's important that we provide support and not be that one last thing, because I want you to come back to work every day.
Right.
I want you to continue to try. I want you to continue to strive for greatness. And so it's important that we provide those supports to help them along that way, and then talk through what that looks like for them.
Yeah. Something that occurred to me also as both of you were talking is that when there is a disruption in your work record, that not only affects what's happening in the present, but that can also affect your employability in the future. Is that something also that you were thinking about as you were building this program?
Yeah, I think when the initial program design, came about, that may not have been top of mind. But I think that it's important that we do have those things built in. We've had a lot of different variables that have taken place within the kitchen that we've had to address, some of which would not be traditional. Like one instance, we had an employee who brought a gun to work.
Okay.
And with that, I had to make a knee-jerk decision. Do I discipline him or do I make an allotment for that? Because we also understand what the community is around where we work.
Yeah.
And people have to get there.
Okay.
So being there is one thing, but getting there is another.
So he needed a feeling of stability and security just getting to work in the first place.
Correct. This was a young African American man who was taking Metrolink and buses to get to our position, to our location, as well as walking through neighborhoods that were unfamiliar to him. So I understand that as a mother of a Black son, and as one who's in community. So sometimes we have to be flexible with those things. Well, I don't want the guns in the workplace.
Sure.
I have to understand also the rationale behind it.
Yeah. Chavi, before you started with Propel Kitchens, did you have any interest in the culinary arts as something perhaps to pursue for your livelihood?
Not essentially. I didn't know what I wanted, for real. I didn't know what I wanted, but it works out really well because my mom was an art teacher, so I kind of have a knack for art. So, and food is an art, so it just kind of all fell into play.
Yeah. And that compassion that Kisha was talking about, have you felt that as someone? Yeah.
Yes, it help. It's part of what helps me thrive. Like, what helps me move forward is the support that I get from the people at work, because without that, I don't have much support.
So along with that training then in the kitchen, what else have you gained by joining Propel Kitchens?
They're almost like a family, kind of. Like, I don't know. I've gained, a sense of self since I started this job, for real. So that's been the main thing, I guess.
That's a big thing.
It is a huge thing.
And Kisha, how common are these stories, similar to what Chavi has experienced, some of the feelings or the circumstances? How common are these among the trainees that you've had?
I think they're very common, but I think they're more common than people want to acknowledge at many places of employment beyond Propel Kitchens. But I think that we don't necessarily have the capacity or the compassion to address them in the typical workplace. But I mean, we've experienced the run of the gamut amongst our trainees that have come through, as well as with our staff. So, I mean, I think that that's one of the things that has propelled us or compelled us to provide, compassion and love in our space and support. And we support one another in all that we do, whether it's, looking for daycares or making sure that, you have a flexible schedule to be able to get off in time to pick up your kids from daycare or, go, handle some of the business that people have. We're right now looking at, getting involved with some of the reentry programs for people who are coming back from being incarcerated. We want to provide, opportunities, and that is what Propel exists to do, is to be that next chance for the person who doesn't necessarily feel like they have one.
Yeah. Why does this matter so much to you, Kisha?
It is the culmination of everything I've wanted to do in my life. I've always been an advocate for children. Typically, I work with older children. I was a CASA worker. I've worked in public education. I currently serve on a local school board. That is just my service. I'm a Christian at the core of my heart. And, I just want to be the hands and feet of God on earth to service people. And that is what we do at Propel Kitchens.
Yeah. So, Chavi, if we were to talk with you maybe 3 to 5 years, do you think you will still be doing work in food service industry, maybe other things that you'd like to try?
Most likely. I'm going to college in the summer, so I'm going to ride that out, and then hopefully, that builds into something more, which I know it will. So most likely, it's going to become my thing until I find another one, I guess.
Thank you both for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.